From the look of this silhouette, you could say this week was a no-frills test drive, but that's only because the facade hides the biggest impact this vehicle delivers. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me pretty much goes without introduction. It is the 2023 Chrysler Pacifica S model, the plug-in hybrid. This vehicle really delivering that sport that minivans are trying to dress up on the outside, but also the efficiency that comes with both hybrid and plug-in hybrid options. And if you recall, Chrysler really was the first to introduce a hybrid minivan, and they continue that for 2023. I preface this week-long test drive with a no-frills attitude, mainly because we all know what to expect when you see this silhouette, because minivans are known about being practical, not about testing 0 to 60 numbers or even the S turns. And even when you add the hybrid and the plug-in option to this vehicle, you could say you take practicality to the next level, which is perfect for the family on the go, which is what you expect to see inside. Now for this week long, well, it was only two of us and our four-legged friend, but the extra acreage really came into play and made, well, packing this vehicle so much easier. I'm not saying that minivans aren't head turners, and if you're like me, you've owned many versions of a minivan and you remember where we've been and where we've come to. If you've been able to dodge the bullet of owning a minivan, well, bravo to you, and I assume you drive some type of two-door vehicle. For the rest of us, well, we do marvel at the latest offerings, and the competition is quite steep here in this segment. Really, other manufacturers dressing up their offerings. We saw many of them on the open road, and you could say each of the pilots were kind of sizing up what we were all doing. Here for the Chrysler Pacifica S, what they're doing well is kind of the smoky atmosphere at the four corners with the darkened wheels, to the mirrors and all the surrounds with the glossy black, even right down to the grille warfare. And depending on exterior color, here in this kind of smoky gray, you can kind of subdue the contrast. But certainly if you go with a white or the other options, you really dress up that contrast and even more so add to that overall sport. Don't blush if you get caught staring, because it is a common occurrence, as most of us really size of this vehicle to see where it fits in the various segments. What I'm referring to is the scale of this vehicle feels like a full-size SUV, while the drivability is more like a sedan, and the numbers truly tell the picture. What you're looking at is about 204 inches overall, wheelbase fairly stretched at 121 inches, width pretty substantial, with the mirrors around about 90 inches wide and 70 inches tall. Front and rear track are equal, but where this vehicle is more drivable is in the ground clearance. This vehicle really planted to the road, just over 5 inches of ground clearance, but you still have a commanding view because of the lift there behind the driver's seat. So what I'm saying is it fits a lot of worlds, and you'd be surprised how much that fits in yours. When it comes to power in the hood for any minivan, you're not really worried about the horsepower numbers, but rather a little bit of pep in its step, and thankfully the Chrysler Pacifica has really always delivered that. But with the hybrid-esque additions, that's also adding additional fuel efficiency and getting rid of range anxiety. Range anxiety comes with all-electric models, which give you that white-knuckle feel when you see that range start to diminish. But hybrid models give you the best of all worlds, meaning when you need it, you can get a little splash of gas and keep going, versus pulling off to the side and waiting for some type of charging up. As for the number, what you're seeing here is around about 287 horses, 262 foot-pounds of torque, coupled to a 9-speed automatic transmission. Also comes in both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive models, but the big numbers really is the fuel efficiency. What you're getting is 80 miles per gallon equivalent and 30 miles of all-electric range. All in, you're getting 500 miles of range with this vehicle. Typically when I swing around to the back, I refer to this as the business end of things, but for a minivan, well, arguably this is a workhorse from front to back, starting with that power plant under the hood, the amount of space to the middle for passengers, and the cargo to boot. And how we get there is in the overall squared off design. That comparative to kind of crossover segments that have more of an angular, sportier look, that can creep on interior space. But here on the Pacifica, the squared off lines equates to extra room on the inside. And where that really works out is in the overall interior width. That's going to be helpful for anyone who wants to turn this into kind of a weekend warrior. Maybe got that deck project, Got to go get some lumber. Well, thankfully this will gobble up a full sheet of plywood because it's over 48 inches wide there on the inside. So by the numbers, what you're going to see is around about 32 cubic feet here behind the third row, and a huge offering when it comes to this rear hatch. Really makes for kind of a rain shield if you're kind of getting your luggage in here, getting out of town. This is just a great protector. Gets out of the way pretty well, really arching through here. For 6'2" like me, it will become kind of a banging affair. So I'd say make a side approach really to help minimize any scrapes and dings up here. 32 cubic feet, and you're going to notice it's kind of cavernous. What I like about that is a flat floor. When you open this up, you got some items rolling around, well, they're going to roll right out. With it being kind of this deep well, that's going to house your items a lot better and keep everything from slinging around. As you move forward, laying the third row flat, that's going to make it around about 87 cubic feet. As you get all the way to the front, around about 140 cubic feet. Again, the best part of that is you can put a full sheet of plywood from back to front in here with ease. Quick run through to lay these rear seats down. You will notice you have room for 3 built-in headrests. When needed, they will flip up. That is kind of a blind spot, not the worst, so when you don't need them, simply just leave them down, pull that handle right there. Now you do have various straps, one up here, one here, and one down there. They are all numbered, 1, 2, 3, so on. Just simply pull here first, down below. That's going to make it tumble back just like that. That's then going to flip it and tumble it with ease. Same thing on that side, but you do have the versatility to kind of keep people and cargo as you see fit. Once you're done in the back, don't forget to close the rear hatch, and it's done real easily with this button here on the rear pillar versus the hatch that can be kind of an arm stretch away. Just simply press that and it folds with ease. If you're a throwback Thursday like me, you remember the old days of kind of the manual operation when it comes to the side doors, but we quickly moved away from that and moved into power doors. Thankfully, that is found here on the hatch. So for little ones that just can't operate it, just simply double tap the 2 buttons on the key fob and the doors slide open with ease. As you saw, the third row tumbles backwards, creates a nice seamless floor from the back of the second row to the rear hatch. Here in the second row, these specifically are not the stow and go seats. Like we've tested before, those tumble forward, recess into the seat, creating one nice flat floor. In this case, these would have to be removed. To do that, you just simply lay the seat back down, and then you have this tab here. You just simply pull it. That will tumble it forward and pretty much release its lock here on the front. Has a nice handle here that will allow you to kind of basically pick it up and remove it. Now the seats aren't that heavy, but it will require some preparation if you do plan to pick some big items up. Well, you're going to want to remove these before you get there, because after all, you don't want to leave these on the side of the curb to pick up later. Once you've manhandled the second row, you'll pretty much want to leave them in place, leaving it like this when you do need to put extra cargo in, because this is just more the convenient option, not removing them. Now to go back to ingress, you'll simply pull this handle here. It does lock into a place, so pulling the handle down here in the hip area allows you to flip it back. You do have reclinability. As you see, pretty much the second and third row can have some nice, great comfort. As for ingress, you do have 2 options, certainly through the middle and here on the outer side. Before we get there, nice double armrest. I really like that. As for ingress to the third row, nice shoulder release up here on either side. Just simply pull up on the handle. It will tumble it forward and slide it at the same time. That creates kind of a pathway to get to the third row, and I'll talk about legroom numbers in just a second. The fun part of the show is really a 6'2" frame like me climbing to the third row, and well, why not show it off? Now you do have that center aisle, which I argue would work well for an adult, but while I'm over here, let me just pull this handle, tumble this forward, and just show you how this works. Real easy, ducking the head for any impact. And once you get back here, what you're going to see is pretty darn good comfort. First of all, with the headroom really angling up as it gets back, making it feel like cathedral. You'll see it in the second row as well. As for legroom numbers, what you're seeing is 41 inches in the front, 39 inches here in the second row, and be prepared, 36 inches here in the third. That means my Achilles heel breaking point of 35 inches is achieved. Anything above that really gives you great comfort. And as you can tell, the seat isn't really positioned all the way down to the floor, has some elevation. That means my legs, knee space is pretty much at a nice comfortable area versus it being a lot more elevated. As you go to move this second row back, you just kind of slide it back nice and easy, get it to its last point, then just ease the seat back. That means you'll have great comfort. As you can tell, even at 6'2", plenty of headroom and knee space. That means this is kind of a best seat in the house anywhere you sit. When it comes to the pilot position, got a lot of things going on here on the steering wheel, as well as the gauge cluster and infotainment system. The gauge cluster, first off, has some analog when it comes to the, as well as the hybrid technology. Huge LCD display in the middle. What I like to keep it on is, of course, the digital readout. Lots of things going on there. As for on the steering wheel, you do have the changeability to the LCD display using these controls on this side. Telephone shortcuts as well. Over here on the right side will be for cruise control, and you do have two options. This one's going to be the one that follows the traffic, keeps the space in between you and other vehicles. This is going to be the typical one, which I prefer. As for the infotainment system, huge oversized screen. It is touchscreen and has clean usability. Do have just the home screen, which I like. That allows you to get back to kind of the split screen, gives you your navigation on this side and some other shortcuts, but again, real nice and easy to use. Below the infotainment, you will find traditional controls for climate, though there is a nice shortcut for the screen up above for climate. That will allow you to keep your eyes more on the road and barely glance down for changes. Little specific pull up and down gradient for the temperature for the driver, as well as over here, and just nice quick references for the climate. What I really like to use this for is the rear control, because oftentimes using some type of other functionality is just difficult. This is just more visually appealing because you have the front, the rear, specifics when it comes to the vent, as well as fan speed and temperature. Everything's really right here where you need it, and if you have small children in the back, you're going to need to be in control. Other controls you'll find is nice symmetric knobs for volume and tune select, shortcuts for lane awareness on and off, the parking sensors on and off, as well as the parking assist. This will allow you to push this, follow the instructions there on the gauge cluster, whether it be for parallel parking or perpendicular. This vehicle will help you park it. One interesting complaint I've heard about is the gear selector knob here, so close to the volume control knob, but they're not created equal. Both are different sizes for one, and this is not operational when you're at speeds. Now, certainly when you're at a crawl, if you're in drive and you are at a small crawl and went to go do the volume and you're at low speed, if you do turn this, it will go to neutral. But again, at very highway speeds, normal speeds, this just spins and does nothing. So for it being a safety issue, I just don't see it. Also, it's just systematic that you should know the difference. Between the front occupants, you got a lot of things going on. First, hidden underneath this cover, you're going to find tons of connectivity, both in a wireless charging pad, as well as multiple USB connections, as well as one up there, and a deep tray right here as well. You will find dual cup holders, as well as multiple cup holders found on the door. Underneath here is a nice shallow tray, really retracts out of the way, more connectivity and some area to store the devices. And if you go old school and keep change, well, you can put them right here if you still do that. Another interesting hideaway is down below. So what's interesting is underneath this center console, you have kind of a hidden drawer. It is accessible by backseat drivers or by the passenger if they reach down, grab this handle and pull out. Obviously, you'll see that it has two cup holders that can extend out for the back seat drivers in the second row, and kind of this deep tray right here. What I like is this is kind of a hidden compartment. So if you're leaving the vehicle, need to hide some valuables that people peering in, you don't want them to see it, well, simply place it here, then close this up, and it pretty much is out of sight, out of mind. Now, if you're not a big fan of the complaint department, then I say you skip to the next clip, because, well, I'm going to get on a tangent here, and it's talking about these two key fobs and how they're not created equal. They certainly look the same, but when you flip them over, they're not. What you're seeing on this one is the Chrysler emblem. What you're seeing on this one is something referred to as key sense. So when I went out for the weekend getaway, well, I took this key. That meant that I was restricted in my driving. I only found this out as I got to highway speeds and needed to get up out of the way. Well, unfortunately, the key sense I had in my pocket, well, preventing me from doing that. And where it starts is really on this interface here. You'll find it under the vehicle settings. You'll find it real easy. Go to key sense. Now this one was password protected. Real easy, 0000 was the default for this. Once you get there, you'll see these various settings. And what you'll see first off is park sense. Do you want it to sound when it's about to activate or alert you? Sound and display, that means it's going to kind of give you a visual. And as you scroll down, you got the parking sense volume. I accidentally put that on low, you can barely hear it. The parking, the rear parking, and as you scroll up. The problem was, as you get down, I'm not saying this vehicle has a need for speed, but when you have this maximum vehicle speed selected at a certain speed, that means obviously you can't go any faster than that. 85 mile an hour is the highest speed. Again, how often do we need to go that fast? But let's just say someone wanted to be a little bit more funny and set this fairly low. Well, funny does not equate on the highway when you're in a dangerous spot. You can't get around an 18-wheeler. This literally maxes out how fast you can go. It doesn't matter how hard you press the pedal, how fast you really want to go in your mind. Whatever this speed is set is how fast this vehicle can go. My argument is, well, that just should be overridden right through here. Make it password protected like I have it and have the ability to turn this off. But unfortunately, once you have the key sense in your pocket and the other one at home, well, you're stuck at the mercy. The other big problem that I found that I have yet to figure out how to turn off is the volume itself for the entertainment. When you're going down the highway, there is a little bit of road noise. And when I had it on the media and I had my best song that came on, I went down to turn this up. Well, unfortunately, the key sense overrode and I could not take this volume up. It basically stuck at a certain level. That means the road harshness pretty much overrode the actual entertainment. So I heard a little bit of sound and a whole lot of road. So my whole point is the key sense, make sure you use it sparingly, obviously for the teenage driver or for someone that may need to have some preventive measures in place. But for the average driver, keep it in the drawer, forget about it, and only take the other one with you. Now that I'm off that tangent, some other great features here on this LCD screen. It's going to be under controls, and what you're going to see first off is the surround camera. You can simply press that, but this is going to be helpful at the slow speeds. When you get into those tight spots, you have the kind of aerial view, and of course the front, rear cameras, whatever. Obviously these wheels are in that darkened accent, so meaning if you get too close to the curbs, it will leave kind of a jarring look, some scrapes that will stand out. So looking at this overview will help you minimize those scrapes and dings. But the other really cool feature is the fam cam. Now I'm a big fan of my fam, so why not be able to keep eyes on them? This is kind of that bird's eye view looking down, allowing you to see that everyone's safe. In our case, we had the four-legged friend. He was perched right over here. He had no clue we were looking down on him, but either way, it just gives you a nice look at make sure everyone's happy, because sometimes the good old rear view just doesn't do it. This is a great feature. So when it comes down to labeling this vehicle, certainly practicality comes at first glance, but the sport innovations and the versatility of this vehicle really helps reimagine how you can fit inside one of these vehicles. And with the combination of the electrification and combustion engine, well, that whole range anxiety is gone and fuel efficiency is delivered. And after all, the family on the go, what is job one? Well, family adventure. And this vehicle definitely delivers. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.